welcome everybody to today's edition of Human Conversations. I am James S.O.U.L, the Creative Director of the International Institute of Humanology. Humanology is a discipline that studies and explains human beings. It gives you a better understanding of who we are, and it approaches us for the first time as integral beings. Humanology, just like psychology, which focuses on the psyche, the mind, sociology, which focus on society, we are in the 21st century. And unbelievably, it wasn't until today that we finally developed humanology, the only discipline that focuses on human beings as a whole. We invite you to discover the new discipline and help humanity help understand and know itself better. And that is why, that is part of what we're going to be talking about today. Today's topic is training and teaching in the new normal. And today here with me, I have four wonderful experts who are going to be discussing three different questions that we have provided for them. And then right at the end, we're going to have a little section left for the questions that you, the public, has for ourselves. We will try our best to answer every single question, although we might run out of time, but we always try. And if not, please don't hesitate to contact us. We are more than happy to have a talk with you afterwards and try and answer all of your questions or comments that you may have. So today's speakers are Yusuf, Efti. Yusuf is a sales leadership trainer, and he is the founder and CEO of Future Icon. And he is with us today, all the way from Bangladesh. Hi, Yusuf. Thank you so much for being here with us today. It's a very big pleasure.
Hi, James. Thank you very much. It's also a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yusuf. Then we have Swati Bagga. She has an MBA in Human Resources and a Diploma in Adult Learning. And she is connecting with us today from all the way from Canada. Hi, Swati. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hi, James. Thank you so much for inviting me on this platform to share my voice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Then, least but not least, we have Dominic Atkins. Dominic works within the pharma industry in the UK and Switzerland, and is connecting with us today all the way from France. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's my pleasure, James. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. And then finally, we have Jessica J. Lockhart. She is a humanologist, the creator and founder of the International Institute of Humanology. She's an author and an international speaker. And she's connecting with us all the way from Panama. So, hi, Jessica. Thank you for being here with us.
Hi, James, or should I say hola? Yes, I am connecting all the way from Panama. And I'm thrilled to be here one more week to discuss human topics, because that's what we do. We talk about human conversations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Okay, so now that we have presented all of our wonderful speakers, let us begin this roundtable discussion, which is more of a conversation rather than discussion. So the first question that we've got is, life seems to be posing teachers and trainers quite some challenges these days. Some had to reinvent themselves while others are having difficulties to resume their regular work. So what do you think would be the greatest challenge still to be faced ahead? Swati, if you could please answer this question.
Yeah, thank you so much, James. So I think for this question, I'll start by saying this quote that we all know, that change is the only constant. And, the rate at which the change is happening right now in today's time is really high. So I would say that people need to be comfortable with that change, and thus I can say that the ability to, adapt to the increasing rate to change is the key here. And that is the challenge, because there are some people and some learners and trainers who can change with this environment easily, and for some it's really difficult. So I would say if we can change and we can cope up with the change, then it's going to be a little easy for us. Otherwise, it's a challenge that everyone is facing, be a trainer or a learner in today's world. And also, there are some of the challenges that we have seen in making some of the choices. And if I'm saying in making some of the choices today, it's like, organizations are baffled to choose the right technology for delivering the training today, because there are WebEx, there is Teams, there is Zoom. So every organization is just jumping on the, technology, but they have to make the choice that which one is the best for them. And last but not the least, I would say, is the content, the most challenging thing, because what we have been doing till now is working on the classroom trainings and some amount of online sessions. And in this situation where everything got pushed to online portals, I think we were not ready right now to start working on the online trainings. And then people are using the contents, and the trainer are using content which was prepared for the classroom. So I would say content development is a challenge right now, that we have to increase the pace, because right now there's not going to be any of the classroom ahead. It's going to be the new normal, which is the online sessions. So I would say the content development for this, web-based training is again going to be a challenge and will be resolved in the coming times slowly. But right now, it's going to be a challenge for all the trainers and the companies to work on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swati. Dominic, same question.
Hi. Just before I get into the answer, I just want to say, I think my perspective here is obviously going to be heavily influenced, as with the other participants, from my background. And just my background is in pharmaceuticals, and I have to say up front, I'm not a trainer specifically. Although when Jessica asked me to take part in this, and I thought about what I do and what I've done, I think, well, okay, I have been trained too an awful lot. And I have also given quite a lot of training, and then I've organized a lot of training for external experts. But it is much more technical training. That's kind of where I come from, and it's always much more group than one-to-one. So I just want to say, my responses will be colored by that. But I think actually Swati gave a very nice overview of the challenges. When I thought about this, my short answer to this question was ambiguity. I think that, that's going to be everyone's challenge in the future, because we just don't know what the future holds. Now, we never know what the future holds, but, if you'd had asked me back in January this year, would I expect to be in the world we're in today? None of us had a clue what was going to happen. So I think, these massive changes that have happened in the last 6 months really sort of changed the whole future of how we interact, how we train, educate, and interact in many other ways. I guess, we can't talk about this without really talking about the COVID situation and how that's changed all of our workplaces. And I think people seem to like working from home or even working remotely. So undoubtedly, we're going to go back to a lot of the interaction we had before and a lot of the classroom training, etc. But undoubtedly, we're also not going to go back to that. I think the COVID crisis has probably accelerated online engagement by a decade or so. And you're right, Swati, none of us are really ready for it. A lot of the technology, it's pretty good, and we're using it. People seem to think Zoom was created in March. It wasn't. We've all been using it for a long time before, but it's become a word that everyone in the general public now knows, because it's been a way of communicating. So I think, you know, it is adapting to this new way of doing things, but that's also quite nice because we have an opportunity, I think, to shape what that will be. The other thing that Swati mentioned was content, and I think probably in some of the other questions we'll talk much more about content, because I think that's also going to change. It has to change for us to be better at training and educating, certainly online, than we have before. I think the other thing is the technology, but also the resources. You know, I used to go into an office every day, or pretty much every day. Same with my wife. And we now realize that the study we have at home is really very small. And I've got a couple of small kids running around outside, and I'm, you know, hoping that they're not going to come barging through the door or this kind of thing. So I think, you know, we're also going to have to be prepared to find workspaces for ourselves, which are different to what we had previously. And I think the last thing, again, I kind of look on this as I'm an employee of a company and I'm doing these kind of things. A lot of trainers are not. A lot of trainers are work for themselves. So as well as the issues around how you deliver training in this new world, how do you get work in this new world? How do you showcase what you do and reach out to the people who are hopefully going to employ you? I think these are some of the biggest challenges as well that we're going to have to deal with. I think that's me done for now.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you for that answer. Yusuf, same question.
Thank you very much, James. And first of all, I want to say a positive word, which is recently I read an article which is two industry going so vague, which is health industry, another one is education and training industry. After COVID-19, these two sector will go very big area. So this is a very positive for education and training sector. So what will be faced in new normal or coming days in education and training sector, which is what Swati already told, is a content development. It's a really challenging, because if you see, when we conduct a training session in face-to-face in normal life, on that time we are conducting so many gamification in training, right? At the same time, we do lots of activity within the team or group discussion in group settings. So nowadays it's a very, very challenging. So that's why first challenge will be the content development. Nowadays, from my perspective, I have conducted lots of online training nowadays, and each topic I developed in new way for online only. Okay, so what is this? I involved this some brainstorming, brain writing, some asking like presentations. So this will be challenging. And what will be the most challenging? Some trainers and educators nowadays actually not so tech savvy. So these will be the major challenges for those people, those who are really not tech savvy. So first of all, we need to adaptable with technology. Like during our training conducting session, we are conducting so many online platforms like Zoom, Google Meet, or StreamYard, or many more online platforms. So being a trainer or teacher, we need to handle all kinds of online platforms. So it is very much challenging for so many trainers and educators. And it's a very, very big challenge. So I think I want to mention two things, one from Swati and one from Dominic. They are saying really wonderful, which is, first of all, the very big challenge for content development. And another one is technology expertise. This will be the big challenges. So thank you, James.
Thank you, Yusuf. Jessica, same question, please.
Thank you for that question. Let me remind the audience, because some of the people that connected a little later. I think the question is, what are going to be the best or the biggest challenges faced by trainers and teachers in the coming times? Well, I would like to begin my answer by acknowledging the answers offered by the three previous speakers and panelists. Yes, I agree, content is important. Yes, I agree, we have to be really on top of technology. Yes, we have to adapt and be flexible. But I would like to begin by mentioning that today's panel focuses on two things: training and teaching, both. So what's the difference between training and teaching? Training is usually considered to be more hands-on teaching, and teaching is usually more focused on theoretical content or knowledge. And I would like to highlight that being somehow limited to teaching online, and I will focus on this aspect of teaching and training, although there will be situations in which people will continue teaching and training live in the presence of their students and trainees. If we are talking only about teaching and training online, I would say there's one aspect that has to be considered. And that was somehow mentioned by Yusuf a few seconds ago. When we're teaching and training people online, the physical, emotional, spiritual contact between the trainer and the trainee, or the teacher and the student, is much more diminished, of course, because we cannot feel the vibes of our trainees or students so closely. We're limited to the screen. Sometimes things are happening in the background, in the context, that can have an impact upon the learning situation. And when we are in the presence of our students or trainees, that context, that connection can help us gauge our teaching and training. But without it, it's much harder to connect with our students and trainees. So I think one of the challenges that trainers and teachers are going to be facing is that connection with their students and trainees. And I think we have to bear that in mind. There's another block that I think we're going to be finding more and more often in our interactions with our students and our trainees, and that is the block created by fear and stress. I think that COVID has created never seen before levels of fear and stress. A lot of people are constantly worried. They're worried about what's going to happen next. They're worried about their future. They're worried about their families. They're worried about their jobs. They're worried about their income. They're worried all the time, worried. And when you're worried, you're creating and releasing, as you all know, cortisol and noradrenaline into your blood system. And when that accumulates, what is usually easy to handle, like worry, can become something worse. It can become fear. And when that fear is not handled, it can still accumulate and lead you to anxiety, which already has physical symptoms. And this can also result in panic attacks. And all those four levels, worry, fear, anxiety, and panic, are the equivalents of stress. We have different levels of stress, and those are the four levels we also find until complete burnout. So, because there's so many reasons why people worry today, and those reasons were multiplied and grown because of COVID, we're going to be finding more and more people who are blocked by any form of fear. And as teachers and trainers, we're going to have to help them overcome those blocks if we want to reach them, if we want the information to really get to them. As teachers and trainers, our job is to transmit. Our job is to get our information to them. And if we have that added block in front of us, we're going to have to first sort it out and help our trainees and students sort it out so that teaching and training can be effective. I think that a lot of people who were not afraid before, who were not worried before, are today. Let me just give you a very simple example. COVID happened, and people who were very easygoing and relaxed in the past are today thinking, oh, my world changed overnight. And if it happened once, it can happen again. So I can't relax just in case. So that kind of fear, that kind of worry is making it harder for us, teachers and trainers, to teach and train our students because they have added blocks and obstacles in their learning processes. So I think that we have to learn to adapt to the situation. We have to learn and acquire new tools that will help us help our students and trainees in dealing with fear, with stress, and with anxiety. Without those tools, our students will learn much less. And our job is to teach them, to train them. I would like to add one last thing, and I'm sorry because this is one of my most loved topics and I get carried away and excited by it, and that's why I have such a long answer. I also think that it's very important to consider that whenever we are teaching or training people face-to-face, we usually have the chance to interact a little bit with them. That gives us the opportunity to somehow get to know them a little bit. Even if it's not very much, a little bit. We see their reactions, we see their body language much better than through the screen. And for teaching and training to be highly effective, we need to know whom we're talking to. We need to know the person we're addressing. We need to know what they believe. We need to know what their worldview is like, because we need to target our clients, our trainees, and our students in a language and in a way that suits them. So in this new normal that we're living today, knowing our audience is going to be harder because we're not face-to-face. The nonverbal communication is going to be much more limited. All that added context is also going to make it difficult for us to understand who they are. So I think that all teachers and trainers need to make a special effort to get to know the students and their trainees when they're teaching online in a way that they wouldn't do live, because the transmission of information is diminished through the screen. So those are my 3 challenges. You know, we need to adapt our teaching methodology to knowing our students better. We need to learn how to help our students and trainees overcome stress and anxiety and fear and worry. And the third one is we have to be able to adapt our content to the new situation, but in this way that I just mentioned. We are all human beings, and we have to realize that the people at the other end of the screen are also human beings. I am limited by my own humanity, but so are my students and trainees, and we have to bear that in mind. Well, I hope I answered the question, and I will keep quiet now and let others speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. You definitely answered the question. I can assure you of that. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the second question. The second question we've got is, training or teaching people online is not quite like doing it face-to-face. What was Jessica mentioning just now? What skill do you think professionals should optimize or improve to excel at this? Yusuf, if you could, oh, sorry, please go for it. Dominic?
So do you want me to answer this one, yeah?
Go for it, yes.
I think Jessica did answer that last question very well and actually picked a lot of points that I wanted to make in this answer. I think she's already sort of started us thinking about, which is great. It's like anything. I think it's not just one skill. I think we all have to get better at many skills to adjust to online training or more online training. Again, my kind of short answer was, we need to know the technology better, and we need to be able to know how it works better. Because, let's face it, we've all been on those meetings where, you spend the first 10 minutes with somebody on mute, people talking over each other, people's videos not working, the internet connection not working, people not knowing how to do different things. So I think that our skills as users of technology need to be very good. And then I think the other really important point that Jessica made is about the engagement and the connection part, because that's really different online. And I think connected with that is the content, which I've sort of reserved more discussion on content for the next question. But how we organize content and how we show content, and how we use the medium to engage, I think is very important, and our skills as presenters as well. So I think training, educating, it all comes down to communication. It's how we communicate. And the core of that is content. So content's always going to be important, but it's kind of the basic. It's how we get that content across to people. So I think the first thing really with training online is our presence. You to some extent, when you walk into a room to be trained by somebody, you respect the person who's at the front because they're the trainer. Online, yeah, okay, to some extent it's like that, but I think it's not quite the same. It's less personal, as Jessica said. You haven't got that interaction where you can really kind of fire off people and learn a little bit about what they're about. If you arrive in the room 15 minutes early, you're going to have a little bit of a chat. You're going to chat to the trainer. You're going to introduce yourself. You're going to chat to the person next door to you and have a little. These interactions have all gone. We can't really do this online. So I think the trainer, the educator, becoming much better at building their presence within the online room, the virtual room, is very key. And also the presence in how they present. I'm not saying this is good training, but a lot of training is somebody standing up and presenting something. You do that in a dull way online, you're going to lose people. They're going to put their camera on mute, their microphone on mute, and they're going to go take a shower or do the ironing or these kind of things. Hopefully they will put their camera on mute because I'm sure you've heard a few stories, as I have in the last months, about people not doing that. So I think, the trainer's presentation skills really have to be top rate. Your pitch, your pace, how you make people engage a little bit. And then I think also the use of media and ideas to engage people. All of these technologies we're talking about, they have functionality. I don't know how half of them work, but in a training room, we might say, write your ideas on a piece of paper, on a Post-it pad, and stick it on the wall over there. You can do that online as well. You can separate into chat rooms. You can mix things up. I think we have to learn to be better at that, to engage with people online. And then, the other really important part is that emphasis on the participant. In a way, in a kind of a strange way, this need, this distance that we have with online training, we have to be more personal. We have to really understand what makes people tick. And you're not going to be able to do all of that as a trainer, just meeting a bunch of people online and right, how do I understand all these people? I mean, that comes down to your preparation for all eventualities and having things there to try and engage people. If you've been in back-to-back online meetings all day, you're really tired. To then have, I've got that training at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. What's going to make you engage in it? How do you give people a bit of downtime? But again, we all know you take a break on a meeting, you're going to get everyone back online. 5-10 minutes later. How do you try and get people to know each other a little bit? That's one of the things I like best about a training course, is you turn up and you meet random other people who you would never have normally met in your day-to-day. Often, not always, but often. So I think these kind of things, and I don't necessarily have the answers, but I think these are really important. I think some of the answers, maybe keeping it short and snappy and concise. I think it's quite difficult to certainly go over an hour of training people online. They really do lose the will to live. Making things discussive, throwing out questions, having little exercises, little games, little polls, whatever it might be, mixing it up, making it a little bit different. Pre-reads and preparation, I think, are very important for this kind of training, even more important than in a face-to-face training. And I think, but I think also this does give us opportunities. I just want to end with this because it all kind of sounds a bit negative. Oh, it's very difficult. We need to be better at everything. But I think, the world will not revert to the way it was, but, it will to some extent go back. And maybe this, we'll just be better now at training if we concentrate on these things and maybe have more opportunity to make things live and reach more people. This technology, we can run a live event, and then as you're doing today, we can record it, we can make it available in different forums. If it's training, you can do a series of different sorts of events with different sorts of media. You can have things in between. You can give people downtime in between, because that's very important for training, allowing people to think about things, maybe discuss with one or two other people, and then come back for more training. So I think, the digital world, the online world, gives us the opportunity to do those kind of things as well, very well. I've spoken quite a lot, so I'll stop.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you for that answer. Wow, you've given us so many wonderful tips. Thank you so much. Swati, same question, please.
So first of all, I would say thank you, Dominic and Jessica. These questions were so beautifully shared with us. And I would just like to add a little bit on what both of them said in collaboration. So I agree to it that, being technically literate is something going to help for sure, both the trainers and the learners. So in this case, the instructors and the trainers need to be more comfortable with the virtual classroom training. So be it any of the software that we use, the trainers needs to understand that it's not only presenting, but it's now engaging, and then in a better way. So they should need to know the whiteboard, the interactions with learners, the quizzes, and how many different platforms are there for the feedbacks, which will actually engage the learner, and they are not just going to sit there and listen. Because, if we are not going to share anything with them, they are just not going to listen to any of the, trainers. So it's very simple that learn new skills to engage the learners that we used to do in a classroom thing. But yes, that was a little easier, but now we need to be more, focused on how things needs to be done on the online platforms. And thus, I would say if a facilitator is more comfortable with the new technology, then, the trainer can help to reduce the disasters that usually happen. So, sometimes it happens that learners are not able to log in. They do not know where the chat box is. They do not know how to raise their hands. These are very minute things, but if our, trainers and if we trainers are literate that enough, we will be able to resolve things. So I have the experience of both being a trainer and the administrator, so I know how things work. But if a trainer is really literate on these aspects, a lot of time could be saved, a lot of education and knowledge would be shared, and this is going to be a positive experience for the learners, and not like they are not happy with the sessions at the end. And to add to it, I'll also say that we usually say that, in classroom sessions, we used to do a lot of gamifications, as Yusuf said earlier. But now in this, I would say it's an era now, an era of online learning. So now we would need to go for more multitasking. So as Dominic said, that presentation is important, and for sure it's really important, but now the focus has to be on presenting in such a way that there is more and more engagement in the online platforms. Pushing some of the puzzles, some of the quizzes, and some questions in between, adding some more videos and some more interactions that will help learners to engage, and that will help the trainer not only to present but to have a discussion with them. So I think that there is a need of more multitasking now in this platform, so that again engagement could be there and we could just gauge the attention of the learners for that sake. Last but not the least, as Jessica said in the last question, that human touch is missing, and that's for sure. It's really missing. So now I think the learners and so I will say the trainers has to be more into this environment, that they have to first ease the learners, because we need to understand this situation is new for everyone. It's not only for us, for them. So we first need to maintain and create that environment that online learning could be beneficial. Online learn, you can learn in this platform. There's nothing very different, but yes, a little difficult, but yes, we can cope up with that. So I think if a trainer is having that thought, and if they are able to convey their messages, it will be easy for the learners to absorb all that information and the knowledge. So because there are many of the learners who have never ever worked on computers. They do not have anything related in their field with computers, but they are coming online to learn new things. So I think now it becomes the duty and the responsibility of the trainer and the facilitators to help these learners uh, learn new things, so that they are comfortable in this new online learning environment. So I think if these things are taken care of, we as an instructors and the trainers are going to do a great job in this field. Thank you.
Thank you, Swati. Thank you for that answer. I'm learning so much today. Wow. Thank you. Yusuf, same question, please.
Thank you very much, James. At the same time, special thanks, Jessica, for your wonderful answer for first question. And I think Dominic and Swati covered all things for this question. Okay, so I want to add a little bit, which is actually when we are being a trainer or teacher on that time, we took training on TOT, training for the trainer or training for the teacher, right? So nowadays, it's required to take another TOT on how to facilitate an online training or class. Each teachers or trainers need to learn how to conduct a training session in online. Nowadays, it's a very important skill. Another point is I want to add, which is Dominic said that presentation skills. Really, it's a very much needed, because when we conduct a session in face-to-face on that time, presentation skills is one way. But nowadays, when we conduct some session in online, in that case, this presentation should be different, because we need to engage some participants, those who are really not in front of me. They are in separate areas, like separate cities or separate countries. So we need to know how to engage them, so how to catch their attention. So in that case, we need to develop our presentation style also, or presentation skills. Number three, we need to collaborative skills. We need to learn how to collaborate actually, because nowadays, if you want to grow as a teacher or trainer, you should go with collaborative way. If you go in collaborative way, in that case, people will be more attracted with your training or with these kinds of teaching sessions. if you see Robin Sharma take lots of training session or lots of online learning session is a collaborative way, and so many trainers was there. So nowadays, if you go in collaborative way, and if you want to collaborate with some consultant or some consulting agency, those who are covering most of the corporates or different kind of sectors, in that case you can be grow. So in that case you need to know about collaboration with consultant or consulting firm or media. 4 is you need to know about digital marketing skills, because nowadays you maybe promote yourself in online media like Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube. So in that case you need to know how to promote yourself. So you need to know about digital marketing skills. Being a trainer or teacher, you should know this. So that is my actually 4 point: presentation skills, TOT on online facilitation style, collaborative skills, and digital marketing skills. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you, Yusuf. Thank you for that answer. I hadn't actually thought about the collaborative side. That's very interesting. Jessica, same question.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Dominic, Swati, and Yusuf for your answers. Yes, as Yusuf just said, you covered a lot of the important aspects that need to be covered here. You know me, I always add things, so I would like to add my little contribution to the answer. I think that training and teaching is more than ever related to public speaking. We are indeed speaking in public. And except for a few countries in the world, there are many societies where speaking in public and public speaking as a subject matter is never taught in schools. I know a lot of people who don't know how to speak in public, and they do it because they have to, but they never received any formal training. And I think that more than ever, people need to be trained in public speaking today. Public speaking is something that we all do every single day of our lives. We talk to our friends, we talk to our family members, we sit at the dinner table and we talk to our family, and that is already speaking in public. But if we want to do it professionally, and if we want to do it effectively, we need to know how to be professionals. We need to learn how to be effective. Because when trying to teach or convey a certain meaning, a certain knowledge to the people we have across in this case, the camera, we have to use everything at our disposal. If I am talking to you like this, I'm transmitting some knowledge, I'm probably going to bore you to death, and you're going to disconnect after 1 minute or 2, because this is not a way to transmit or convey any information, because there's no emphasis and this is boring, and I'm going to put you to sleep right away. The same way, if I'm talking to you and I don't modulate my voice, I don't look at you, I don't attract your attention with slides, with materials, with something stupid like what I just did, I might lose you completely. Storytelling, we need to use stories and examples to illustrate what we're doing, to illustrate what we're teaching. All these traditional skills that public speakers use have to be fine-tuned and even improved for teaching online. We need to be not just public speakers. We need to be professional public speakers. We need to know how to do it properly. Let me give you one example, okay? Storytelling. Today we're having 4 different speakers. One is connecting from France, the other one's connecting from Canada, another one from Bangladesh, and I am connecting from Panama. Well, we might all have different native languages. We're all communicating in English. If I were to teach a group in India, I might probably support my presentation with more slides and more text than if I were making a presentation in Spanish in Spain, because Spanish and English were my 2 native languages. So just because I'm speaking in a language that is not my own, or I'm talking to somebody who's not a native speaker in the language I'm using, I will support my presentation with more visuals, just to make it more understandable. So training people in public speaking is fundamental today. Not all of us know how to speak in public effectively. We need to teach people all the tricks, all the tips, and we have to do it in a human way. We go back to the first question. Every person in our audience is different. Every person has different beliefs, a different worldview. We need to have empathy. We need to be able to connect with them. And a very effective public speaking professional will know how to do that intuitively or through training. But most people don't have that training. So I would recommend everyone, of course, because I'm a humanologist, to study a little bit of humanology and improve their empathy and their connectivity with their audience. I would also like to say that we've spoken about many things like content, we've spoken about engagement and attention, we've spoken about how to really create more interesting materials through collaboration. I think all these things are fantastic. But the most important one is creating the motivation in our people to listen. Yes, engagement will maintain it, but we have to spark that interest. We have to start our contributions by creating a certain interest in our audience. And that is part of public speaking. So, ladies, gentlemen, anyone listening to us today, please get some training on how to speak in public professionally. Will you? I think that will help you, and that will be of great benefit to your students and your trainees. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for the answer. I think our audience is pretty much interested in what we're saying. We're quite engaged with them. So I think we're using all of the little tips that each one of the speakers has mentioned today. So you can see a clear example of this exact question with our roundtable discussion. So thank you. Let's move on to the third question. So our third question for today is, what is, in your own opinion, the most common mistake professionals make when training or teaching that could be avoided in the new normal? Yusuf, if you could please answer the question.
Thank you very much, James. It's my turn, all right? This time I can speak it fast, okay? Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. You mentioned the most valuable skill, which is public speaking. Really, it's a very, very time-demanding skills nowadays. And it's a really needed for each and every teachers and trainers. And storytelling is one of the best way to connect participants. Thank you. And James, your question answer is one thing, which is if we see our traditional training or face-to-face training, on that time we see lots of trainers are using their PowerPoint presentation is 4.3 aspect ratios. I mentioned PowerPoint slides. So when you use 4.3 aspect rational PowerPoint slide, it will be take a little bit square size. But when you conduct a session in Zoom or Google Meet, they will give a space for 16:9 aspect ratio PowerPoint presentation. So first of all, need to change all presentation and convert it 16:9 aspect ratio PowerPoint. First one. Second is, our traditional training is other traditional like monotonous. What Jessica says, that is a public speaking. I'm talking that everything is going fine. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you? Everything is fine. So this is not a go through in monotonous. You should ask question in every 5 to 7 minutes or 10 minutes max. Because when you engage your participant in 5 or 7 minutes or 10 minutes max, in that case, they will try to learn from you. Then our training, traditional training is a activity based, like gamification and many more things. So nowadays you need to add what previously Swati said, that you need to add some puzzles, some brainstorming. You of course use some brain writing also, because when you give these kinds of brain writing thoughts or brainstorming thoughts, in that case they will be engaged with you. Nowadays it's a very missing in traditional training, right? Another one is, I think, which is a very required for each trainer nowadays, they are trying to say in long way, but when you conduct in online training, you should be concise. Your presentation should be concise in a little bit, I think 5 or 7 points specifically, or within a one method or method based or model based or acronym based, which will be effective for teachers or trainers for conducting a session. So if I summarize my part, which is I first mentioned the PowerPoint presentation slide should be 16:9 aspect ratio. Second one is asking question every 7 or 10 minutes. Use brainstorming or brain writing activity. And of course, your training should be method, model, or acronym based or concise. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you, Yusuf. Thank you for that answer. I had not thought about the PowerPoint ratios. That's a very good point. Wow. Dominic, same question.
Hi. So, Yusuf, you took your opportunity to go first very well, because I just went through my notes, striking things out that you had said, which were very good points. And I'd just like to echo what James just said about the PowerPoint. I mean, that's a really, a really small detail, but it has a huge impact when you're showing something on a screen. So I think it's really important to think about those kind of things. So I'll try and say something a little bit different, because I agree with everything you said there. When I looked at this question, there's this word again, the new normal. And I think because of the kind of conversation we're having and the times that we're living through, we think online. And again, I think as we've all mentioned, as we've been talking about this, it's clear that online interactions are going to increase. But I think also, the new normal really is just going to be competing for people's attention in a much busier world. Whether we do that online or face-to-face, it doesn't really matter. So I think, when I think, well, okay, what should be avoided in the new normal? I think often in the delivery of training, people are just not prepared. And I think all of the things that we have been talking about here, they require greater preparation, greater thought about your audience, greater thought about your content, and greater thought about how you get it across to people. So I guess I wanted to start by concentrating on the sort of content and the methods of delivery, because I hear this saying, a lot of people just show up and throw up. They just kind of regurgitate this stuff, and I'm expected to sit here and listen to it, and that's me trained. I've now received my training because you've rambled on for however long. Again, content is really, really important, but we need to think about how we deliver it and how we get it across, and how we get it across to people in different ways. So I think, there needs to be much more focus on that preparation and preparation of materials, and thinking about the way that you deliver it to engage people. And also, and I think this is the most difficult part, and probably is even more difficult online, you would hope that the ultimate aim of training and teaching is that somebody can then do something. So, how do you prepare your materials, particularly if you're delivering them in this, what can be a fairly anonymous way online? How do you deliver things that people actually pick up the skills, the hints, that they make use of what you're giving them, and they can practice using them? I think that's a difficult thing. But I guess, the main kind of point I wanted to make here is it's about grabbing people's attention. It's about sparking things. It's about making things kind of stick out for people. And again, just one thing, when I was talking through with a colleague, again, as I come from the pharmaceutical world, we're often, interact with doctors, and it's not necessarily training doctors. Doctors know a lot more. Medical doctors know a lot more about medicine than I do, so I'm not going to train them. But we'll often, facilitate training of doctors by other experts and other doctors, etc. And somebody was telling me about an online meeting recently where, the guy is presenting and his cell phone starts ringing, which is clearly, a big bad. You don't do that when you're presenting. That's kind of the worst thing in the world. He picks it up and he answers it. And it's a patient asking him questions. And he was using that interaction as a way of training the audience of how you have this conversation with a patient. It's things like this that will kind of make somebody who's drifting off and thinking, what am I going to have for dinner? Actually kind of re-engage and say, oh, that's interesting. It grabs my attention and it draws me in. So I think the more we can think about how we deliver the content, how we engage people, the better trainers we will be and the better training we will have in this new normal. And you're almost sort of forcing people to stay engaged. And I think that's the opportunity that this gives us.
Thank you so much, Dominic. I love that example. That's really interesting and very effective. Wow. Swati, same question.
Sure. First of all, I should say Dominic and Yusuf, amazing pointers. I have, in fact, got off many of my pointers now, being on the third position. But let's see if I'm able to share something, with you. As Dominic said that, when we saw this question about the new normal, then now the thing came into mind that what a trainer or a facilitator shouldn't be doing it, so that the mistakes could be reduced. So over here, my thought has gone towards not the technology end towards, or not to the presentation, but more towards the humanly side. And thus, I would say now is the time that we shouldn't assume things. So, when the facilitators and the trainers will not assume that their audience know this thing or their audience know this software. They'll be able to connect better. They'll be able to share, and they'll be able to make the comfortable environment. The facilitators shouldn't assume that it's a normal transition from classroom to online. It does need a lot of preps to be done, a lot of adjustments, as Yusuf said, in the presentation size. So they need to shorten the time frame. They need to engage all the audience. So they shouldn't assume that people must be listening. So there has to be some engagement, more engagement. And one more thing, that they shouldn't assume that everyone knows the virtual classrooms, because as I said in my previous answer, that many of the people are there who do not even have any of the work on their computers. They are in their different job profiles, and now if they are transitioning towards online, then the trainer and as a facilitator, I shouldn't assume that they know everything. So I think removing this word and removing this thought that they know and assuming that they know everything is not a good idea now. And if we remove this thing, then there are a lot of mistakes that we can take care before it happens. And the second thing, I usually talk to many of the facilitators as well as learners of different age groups, and I got to know that there are students and the learners, for them it's very new. Yes, the age, the new era, the youths are online always, but they are not in that practice to learn something from online for their possibly next 6 months. So I think the thing is, let's not think only about us. So I understand that many of the trainers and the facilitators, they are saying that it's really difficult. Like we said, we discussed that the person should be technically strong and they should learn the technology, and it's really difficult for the facilitators. Yes, I understand, but at the same time, just try to understand it's new for them also. So it's not only us, it's them also. So if we think about this thing, the adjustment is going to be really easy. It's not only that we are going to adjust, the learners will also adjust, and then they'll understand that it's like Yusuf said, it's in the collaboration. So I think if we give thought, as a trainer, if we think of these two things, then the transition from classroom to online is going to be a little easier. Not for sure very easy, but a little easier. And adding to it is, yes, the technology plays a major role, and a trainer and the facilitator needs to be good and on this hands-on technology, and so that they can help their learners in every possible manner whenever required. So yes, the same similar points again and again, but I think giving a little more human touch in this technology field is going to be much more beneficial. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you, Swati. Thank you for that answer. Well, at the end of the day, we're all human. So, Jessica, same question.
Thank you so much. I'm very lucky to be the last one because I'm a member of the Institute, so I can listen to everybody else before, and I can answer and adapt my answer to their comments already. So my answer to this last question is going to use a little example taken from my own personal and professional life. In the past, I used to be a translator and simultaneous interpreter. I used to translate what people said into another language. And I used to do it in two different ways. I used to translate books and I used to translate conferences. So everything we're doing here, I used to repeat at the same time in the other language for those who didn't understand the original native language. And this, of course, posed a lot of difficulties because we needed to translate differently, whether it was in writing or it was verbally, because when we were doing it in writing, it was going to stay. It was going to be perfect, permanent. Sometimes when doing it live, we could, make little mistakes or adapt things and not be so precise and so perfect because there was no time. If we were translating somebody who was using, for example, a local example to illustrate what they were saying, maybe we, the interpreters, didn't really know that local example, so we just repeated it and hoped that the audience would understand what the speaker was saying. But when we were translating in writing, or for example, I remember when I was translating movies for their dubbing into Spanish, I remember there was this one movie that made use of an example of a local politician in the US that was very, 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 very famous in a certain part of the US because of the way he used language. He had this gift of words. But when translating the movie into Spanish, if I had used that word, no one would have understood what we were talking about because they didn't have the local knowledge. So I remember that when translating that movie into Spanish, we chose a different icon to represent somebody who spoke very brilliantly. We used Cyrano de Bergerac, that's a French person quite well known in Europe, that everybody relates to using language beautifully. So in that sense, we adapted the message to the local audience so they would follow it better. We can do that in writing because it is easier for people, because the written text, or in this case the video, would remain and we have the time to look for the alternative. But sometimes when doing it simultaneously, we just didn't have the luxury of time to find the perfect example. Having said this, when preparing our presentations, we do have the time. Ladies, gentlemen, prepare. There's this very, very, very widespread mistake by which Professional speakers, teachers, trainers take their materials and just repeat them over and over and over and over again. They use the same examples, they use the same tone, they use the same jokes. But that's not the ideal way of conveying information, because they're not really preparing their presentations, their lessons, their materials to the audience they're addressing. And the new normal has really highlighted this. I'm thinking of teachers, for example, today, not so much trainers, because trainers usually train adults, but when you talk about teachers, many teachers are having to teach children who barely know how to read, children who have no clue on how to use a computer, children who get really distracted when having to see a talking head that is only talking on the screen. So in that type of teaching, teachers have to really prepare their lessons much more thoroughly. They have to invest a lot more time in creating contents that will meet the target audience and that will be useful, that will be easy, and that their audience will follow. Well, one of the most common mistakes I find in teachers and trainers when preparing their materials is precisely the lack of preparation. They forget to prepare it. They take this that they already offered there and they just repeat it. Well, you might do that, but you have a high probability of losing a lot of your audience because the presentation is not adapted to your audience. Once again, you have to really bear in mind whom it is that you're addressing. And you have to make the adaptations to the materials, not only to the people, but to the format, to the hour. I mean, it's not the same to be training a group at 9 o'clock in the morning than training a group at 9 p.m., is it? No, they're much more tired. They're just thinking about going to bed or watching a movie. You have to be maybe a little bit more interactive at the end of the day. And when you're adapting to a virtual environment, I think it's more fundamental than ever to have a few minutes of interaction with your audience, which is something I said at the beginning of today's panel. I think it's fundamental to really know what they know and to know what they expect and what they want. Sometimes it's better to teach less but well than to try to teach more poorly. What you usually teach people when offering public speaking courses is that you're going to first tell everybody what you're going to tell them, and you're going to tell them, and then you're going to tell them what you told them, which is a very, very, very basic tool for speaking in public. Well, I would say this is the same thing. You have to know what they want to be told. You have to know what it is that you have to teach, and you have to adapt it by preparing it beforehand, not by improvising. If you are teaching something that you haven't prepared and you suddenly see everybody just looking around, or just as Dominic said before, turning their cameras off, well, that means you're losing them and you have to change your style. But if you try to do it just like that, like we did in simultaneous interpretation, you might not come up with the right answer. So please, people, do your homework. Do your homework before, because that will save you a lot of trouble. That's my humble opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Very, very powerful words. Thank you. And this actually concludes all 3 questions that we prepared for this roundtable discussion. Thank you. Let's move on to the questions from our public. Give me a second so that I can read them. And I shall propose them for you guys. For this question section from our public, anybody who would like to answer, please just go ahead. We don't have an order here to follow, so let's try and have a conversation. So the first question that we have is, I can't seem to engage with my students. My students connected with me much more when it was in person. Any tips as to how I can engage with my students better? Anybody who would like to answer, please just go ahead.
Well, can I think I already answered this question before by telling you to connect with them. I would suggest, if you see that you're not connecting with them, I would make a difference, okay? One thing is offering, for example, a masterclass. We come here, we teach, we don't know the audience, and there's going to be no continuation. But if the people you're trying to teach or train is a group of people you're working with on a regular basis, the approach is different. What I would do is, if you want to train or teach a group of people you don't know, you could perhaps do some previous work with them. You could send them a questionnaire. You could send them a set of questions. You could send them an invitation to send you some background information on them or what they expect from your lesson. That always helps, because that gives you already a little bridge of connection with them. If it's an ongoing relationship, if this is like a group of students you're teaching every month or every week, or if it's a course that is going to last a few days, you could always create some social time. You know, if your course is going to last a whole week and you're going to have lessons from 4 to 9 every night, you could always have a half-hour coffee break and spend that time talking about nonsense. I mean, nothing related to the course. Talk about them. Talk about the weather. Talk about how they feel. Ask them questions. Get to know them. Use that time for them to feel your humanity and for you to connect with them at a human level. I think those 2 little tips might help.
Go for it, Swati.
So I'll just add one more thing in Jessica's answer. So yes, it's really important, and I could totally relate with what she said, you know, to add a humanly touch. I'll share some example later on, but yes, for this question, if we can add some questions in a puzzle way, you know, after some of the slides, and not just wait for the end of the session. So it will be you'll be able to make your session much more interesting and engaging, because then you'll be able to know that who is attentive, who is not. And most people would love to answer you back, because then, they'll be able to see that, yes, you are trying to engage with them. So it's really important that put something in your presentation after 2 or 3 slides, and use your videos, not only the images, some more interesting ways to engage with them. If you are doing any of the surveys and the feedbacks, then it has to be much more engaging with them, where they can in fact write not only by just clicking yes or no, but give them full platform to write and share the details. And yes, like Jessica said, that humanly touch is really important. Talk to them about anything and everything, whatever you can. So I could recall of one of the trainer who did that, and then afterwards the learners used to get connected to him on not on LinkedIn but on Facebook every time. So like this, he was having a huge, I would say, I will not use the word database, but he had a huge connecting network, which was very engaging. And like this, people get to know you and you get to know people. So I think that could be one more thing that could be done.
Thank you, Swati. Dominic wants to answer the question as well. Go for it.
Yeah, just to add something in. Obviously, it depends who the pupils are. Whether it is pupils, kids, or whether it's more sort of adult training. Obviously, it makes it a little bit different. But I think a bit of shock tactic can sometimes make people pay attention, or just doing something in a different way. If you've been training in a classroom, take them into a field and sit them down in a circle in a field, or just doing something different like that can sort of break things up and get people a little bit more engaged. Or putting the onus onto the group as well. And again, it depends who the group are and what kind of training you're doing, but getting them in turn to lead a session, putting a bit more pressure on them to facilitate engagement. If they're having to do something, they might be a bit more respectful to the other people who are having to do something, because when it comes around to them, it's all on them. So that also might help in certain circumstances.
Thank you, Dominic. If anybody else wants to answer, go for it. If not, we will move on to the next question, because we are running out of time. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So we have a question here from Hassan Ahmad. Please excuse me if I mispronounced your name. Before conducting a meeting or training session, what should we do for an effective meeting or training session? Thank you. Thank you, Hassan, for that question. Jessica?
Well, I think, Hassan, thank you for the question. We already answered part of that question before. I think preparing it is fundamental. I think you have to really prepare everything about the meeting or about the training session. My best recommendation would be that you subscribe to one of our public speaking courses, so you learn everything there is to learn. But some of the ideas I can just share here in a few minutes are: prepare your slides. I mean, the visual and auditory material that you're going to be preparing has to be top quality. It has to really be adapted to the message. It has to be adapted to your audience. It has to convey the right amount of information in a very effective way. If you do what some of the speakers we see sometimes do, which is having slides that have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of words on the screen, you go like this, you're trying to read everything, you completely lose your clients. You completely lose them because they're too busy looking at the slide instead of listening to you. So you have to maintain their attention in what you are saying. You are the expert here, like I am right now. You're listening to me. You're listening to what I am saying in spite of the bright color that I have in my back, because that's not moving. If it were moving, you might get distracted and listen to me. So prepare all your visuals and your audio materials very, very thoroughly. Second, you have to prepare the contents adapted to your audience, as we said before. Know what they know what they expect, know what they don't know, and this is something most people forget, know what you know and know what you don't know. Because we usually ask the audience what they know, but we forget to ask ourselves, do I know everything I need to know about this session? Do I know everything, or am I blinded maybe by my lack of knowledge? My own worldview might limit me. Let me give you an example, okay? If I'm going to go make a presentation in a Muslim country, not being Muslim, I might really make a mistake in assuming certain things and in presenting my own materials, because I will have to adapt them to my audience. But I might not be aware of what I don't know. So as part of my research, I might want to run my materials with somebody from a Muslim country just to make sure that I got it right. That's a very, very easy example. Sorry for using religion. It's not the most appropriate thing, but it's a very clear example, I think. And then I would also consider what kind of additions I'm going to include. It's like what Swati said. Am I going to play games? Am I going to do what Dominic mentioned before and have different rooms for people to mingle in and to work in groups and solve situations so they feel like it's more interactive? All these things you have to prepare beforehand. And of course, measure your time, rehearse. I mean, rehearsing is something most people don't do. We think, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I already prepared my slides. I am ready. No, you're not. And you won't be ready until you rehearse your presentation or your class 15 times in front of a mirror and recording yourself so you can correct your mistakes. We think we speak a certain way, but then when we watch ourselves, it's not like that at all. We don't really see ourselves doing it. So rehearse, record yourself, and listen and watch what you did. That will give you a lot of insights and a lot of information on how you're doing things. That's my short answer.
Thank you. Jessica, you covered all. I just add a little bit. You covered like 3 points, especially PPT preparation, content development, and practice. Rehearse. Recording this voice and rehearse. So this is a very powerful 3 things. Another I want to add, which is, if you really know your audience, in that case, you may send some pre-read materials, which will be pre-engaging with your audience or in a meeting. Like in my training, I just sent some assessment tools, like leadership assessment tools or stress management assessment tools, or I maybe sent an article for reading article which is related to this topic. So it will be help a lot to you to connect your audience. Hassan Ahmed, thank you very much. Hassan Ahmed from Bangladesh is a very dynamic and aspiring trainer from Bangladesh, actually. Thank you, Hassan.
Thank you. So I believe Swati wanted to answer this question as well.
Yeah, I just want to add one, very minute thing that, Hassan has asked about, effective meeting and the training session. First, you need to understand that both the things are really different. So meetings and training are different. So yes, prepare for your presentations for both of them for sure. But, when we go in any of the meetings, you need to know who is going to attend the meeting. And if they know what is the meeting for, they should have that agenda before coming so that they can prepare for the meeting. And then it's like the prerequisite sending to the, in the training, but yes, it's different. So you need to understand the differentiations that are there. And then you need to know that in the meeting also, you need to prepare yourself so that you can take the meeting for, let's say if it's for 1 hour, then you need to know how much time has to be given, and which is similar in the training session. But yes, training session needs to be much more in a different way, because there are going to be learners who are going to listen to you and understand you. Whereas in the meetings, it's going to be a little different, where everyone is going to have their own perspective and then they are going to share their information. So they are two different things, and then it's better to keep them differently. But yes, preps for both of them in the way of presentation, preparing what to speak, how to speak, and then knowing your audiences in both of them is really important. And audiences should also know that what you are going to share with them. So I think I just wanted to add this small minute thing.
Thank you, Swati. Thank you so much. I think we might have a little bit of time left for just another question, but we have to answer quite quickly because we are running out of time. The other question that we've got is, let me find it. Okay, here we go. I don't have enough money to adapt my learning academy to the online world. How can my business survive?
Alliances, find partners, unite, do what Yusuf said before, join forces.
Anybody else want to answer?
James,
I think.
Can you repeat?
Yes, of course.
Can you repeat the question?
Of course, no worries. The question is, let me find it again, sorry about that, is, I don't have enough money to adapt my learning academy to the online world. How can my business survive?
Oh, great. I just add one point, which is recently I just completed a course from EDX, how to learn online. This is simply free courses and you need to spend no money. So you can just do this course, how to learn online, and it is a very insightful course. And all of you know that EDX is a very established online learning platform. So I just suggest that you may do this course. It's free. Thank you.
Thank you. Dominic, go for it.
Yeah, just to add as well, I think these adaptations don't always have to be expensive things. I think the best investment you can make is your time really thinking through, what are you trying to do? How are you trying to do it? and how might your materials and resources best convey this. And you might well find that these changes can be made, for no cost or very little cost. It doesn't have to be big and fancy just because it's online.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you for that answer. Okay, so does anybody else want to say any last comments? Anything we would like to say to our audience? Any last messages or key tips or anything like that?
Well, I would just like to add one line here. So my mentor shared this with me, and I would like to share this here, that it's a difficult phase, but every phase passes. So we are trying our best to move from something that we used to do for a longer period of time to something which is very much new right now, which is like online. And I think when collaboration, adjustments, preparations, all of these are done together, then there's going to be a very good result of this online and the new era also. So let's be together, let's face it, and I think we can do much better.
Thank you, Swati. Thank you for that message. I think Jessica wants to say something as well.
I'm sorry, it's just that I got a question privately that is for the whole panel. So I'm going to read it to the whole panel because I just got it instead of being open. The question says, how to reduce shyness in front of camera and huge audience. So if you allow me to answer this, because it's one of the fields of work I am most devoted to, in our opinion in Humanology, shyness is on people's beliefs. I mean, people who feel shy are usually people who developed beliefs that led them to feeling uncomfortable or feeling uncertain in front of audiences. So I would recommend this person to try and analyze that fear, because it is a fear based on a belief, trying to identify the belief that is leading the person to be fearful. So when a person is shy, the person is usually telling him or herself, I can't do this. I can't speak in public. What if I do it wrong? What if I make a mistake? So we find once again the what if question, which is the question of fear. Every time we ask ourselves a what if question is because we fear something. And we usually teach people in Humanology that fear is in the future. So we would teach this person a whole bunch of tools to handle the fear before, to handle the fear during, to learn about stage fright, and to work on their self-esteem and their own positive valuing of themselves. I can't go into much more detail because of a lack of time, and I would like other members of the panel to answer as well. I hope this gave you a little idea, Jalal, of what you were asking.
Thank you, Jessica. Anybody else wants to answer this question quickly before we end? Okay, so let's, oh, Dominic, I see you have...
I was only going to say that really is Jessica's expertise. I certainly couldn't give a better answer.
All right, thank you, Dominic. Thank you for that reply. Okay, so that actually concludes this wonderful edition of Human Conversations. First of all, I would like to thank all of our panelists for being here with us today, for having taken the time to answer all of these questions and have a conversation with us. And secondly, I would like to thank our audience for being here with us and listening to us and proposing all of these wonderful questions as well. Don't think that because we haven't been able to answer your question or your comment right now that you're not going to get answered. We will always try to answer all of your questions, even afterwards, and feel free to get in touch with us and with all of our panelists. We are a community, we help each other out. So let's start the dialogue between us. Then the last thing that I would like to say is that we actually have another roundtable discussion which will be taking place on July 31st on the topic of lessons learned to help us thrive. So if you found this wonderful talk interesting, please do connect to the next one, because the International Institute of Humanology always tries to bring you different topics that we think might interest you, might help you, might make you feel like you are advancing in these troubling times that we're all facing just now. So please stay tuned. And the final thing that I wanted to say, and yes, I know I'm talking a lot, is I would like to invite all of our panelists to share each other's works, to help each other grow and advance, like I just said to the public, but help each other out. Like I said, we are a community. We can help grow together and go even further. So let's go all collaborate together. Thank you so much for being here with us. I'm James S.O.U.L, and this was Human Conversations. Have a nice day.